Hey guys, welcome back to Cult of Film. We're rolling forward with the Sobrino with Color Code. We are
How's it going,
tackling this.
everybody?
Yes, we're tackling this week a movie that I didn't even know existed. I didn't know was out. I was literally driving down the street and I saw a movie poster, and I'm like, that looks like a John Hughes film. I'm like, wait, Lisa Frankenstein. That like it looked like it looked 80s, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I immediately went on YouTube and looked up the trailer. I'm like, this looks amazing. And I had heard nothing about it. I looked it up just a bit, saw that it is written by the great Diablo Cody, who wrote Jennifer's Body, who wrote, I believe, Juno. And yeah, me and my nephew here checked it out, and we're really pleasantly surprised.
It was such a
Release,
fun movie.
right? Okay, take it away, man. What did you think?
Sure. I've definitely seen, some sort of promotional maybe clip or like a movie poster just flipping through like Facebook or Instagram. I didn't think much of it, but it did look 80s. I'm pretty sure it had like purple with like neon, font or whatnot. And I
Yep.
saw that it was Cole Sprouse, and I was like, okay, Cole Sprouse. I'm glad he's, doing some work these days. But I had no idea what it was going to be about. Like the most I got out of it without trying to spoil it for myself is that it was a horror comedy. It takes place in the 80s. But man, it was such a fun movie. Holy
Right.
shit. There were some parts in that movie to where like I was like, okay, like it's cutesy, it's a little cheesy, but then when the first death happened, I was just like, oh shit, like we're really
Yeah.
in this. Without, spoiling anything, there are deaths,
Yeah.
people perish in this film, but in such clever but almost like funny ass ways.
That's exactly right. This is a movie. You were right. It's a horror comedy, a dark comedy, and it is as dark as it is comedic. And you're right.
Hmm.
Like I had the first like the first 10 minutes, like we're watching. It's like, okay, this kind of feels like an '80s like young adult
Yeah,
kind
like
of
16
thing.
Candles type of
And
thing.
and I'm like, okay, we're sort of getting a sense of, okay, we it sets up our main character, Lisa Swallows, also known as Lisa Frankenstein. She is her father has remarried, and her mother was murdered, and her new stepmother is kind of a wicked stepmother type, but she also has a really cool, fun, supportive, just lovely stepsister. Um,
Shout
in
out Liza
Lisa
Soberano.
and they're kind of really cute together. And still, Lisa is she's an odd duck. She's a lonely girl. Those of us that didn't have a whole lot of friends in high school, I really related to her being a weirdo myself. And basically, she figures out a way to, as a misunderstood kind of goth girl who loves old horror movies, she figures out a way, quite by accident, to make herself a boyfriend.
Resurrects a whole ass zombie, reanimates and
Yeah,
everything.
and it's again, it has the feel of, for those of you out there that watch, it had a feeling of Heathers, which was a dark teenage comedy starring Winona Ryder and Christian Slater
Mhm.
from,
I've heard
I
of that.
believe, the late '80s, early '90s. So it had that level. It had some aesthetic to Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, the Elvira movie they did back in '88. But it also had sort of this fresher lens on it, because obviously it's the 2020s, and we're doing, it's being made now,
Mhm.
where it had its campy '80s moments, but it also had it imbued these female characters with a sensibility that they didn't get to have in the '80s. So when you have a character that's a creeper, she could address it, and then some, which you wouldn't necessarily get in maybe a John Hughes film. Some of them, but
Mm,
others.
yeah,
So, but
good points to
without
touch
being
on.
without being preachy, without being waving any flag of anything, just in terms of like, oh, okay, yeah, she's pretty cool, and he's being creep, so she's going to deal with it, and those moments are cool.
Yeah.
But you're right, the use of color in this movie, the writing, again, it starts slow, and then we get to a point where basically she hangs out. Our young protagonist Lisa, she's hanging out in a cemetery. It's an abandoned cemetery because she's a goth girl, and she just likes to read her Edgar Allan Poe in the cemetery, which is totally punk, totally cool, totally metal. And one night, a storm occurs, and it strikes the grave of the young man whose grave she tends to. She just sort of hangs out there, and one night, lightning strikes, and it brings this young man back. But when he comes back, he's in pretty rough shape. And over the course of the movie, she figures out a way in classic Dr. Frankenstein fashion to kind of build him back better in a way. And that's fun to watch. It's fun to watch her, talk to a guy who, by the way, doesn't speak 99% of the movie.
Literally 99% of the movie.
Hats off to Cole Sprouse to basically play a character and not be allowed to
speak
talk at all. Like he's
just
completely nonverbal. Verbal cues. He's very much like Frankenstein's monster, but can't even speak. So and so it puts it all on Lisa to basically carry, and she leads him through what is just a wild story that begins with, again, if you haven't seen it, you better pause now because I'm going to spoil something. As my man mentioned here, that first kill, didn't see it coming. He and I, we were like, fuck, what? And yeah, so that first kill, you don't expect. Kind of doesn't come totally out of left field, but once it happens, like, okay, immediately the stakes are raised. They just keep getting raised throughout the movie, and you're really like, how is Lisa going to keep hiding this guy? How is she going to keep hiding the fact that she's
just
getting him through parts? All of it, and she does it, and it's this beautiful little dark rom-com. It's a dark rom-com,
for sure. Absolutely. Go ahead. No. Oh wait. No, go ahead.
No, please do. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say in the theater there were a bunch of references that obviously I'm unaware of because I was born in 1995 and grew up in the 2000s. But there were just little one-liners of like products or brands or like maybe stuff that doesn't exist anymore that obviously Uncle Kyle and Uncle Ken were getting a kick at, and the people next to us too. What were some of the things that you remembered that they like name dropped, or like some of the products or some of the brands that they name dropped that maybe you could fill me in with that?
Sure. Okay. Growing up, if you are a kid in the 80s or 90s, the place to go is the mall. Okay. That's just, whether you're growing up in Chicagoland, whether you're growing up in the San Gabriel Valley, whether or not you're growing up in the Bay Area, you go to the mall. You go to the mall to go to the arcade, you go to the mall to get a hot dog, you go to the mall to watch a movie, you go to the mall to buy comics or whatever. That's this, stuff we were doing. And there's one of the girls and I could not believe I remembered this because it's not even a place I shopped at as a kid. One of the girls in one of the classes that Lisa's in was talking about like the shirt or the jeans that she got, and like one girl's talking, oh, where'd you get this? I love your shirt or whatever. And she's like, I got it from Contrampo. And I'm like, wait a minute, it wasn't Contrampo. I'm like, it was Contempo. And I don't think Contempo as a store has existed
I'm gonna look that up.
25 years. Yeah, Contempo. Contempo, there was an early Walkman that her mom was using
on her hip. I saw that.
the specific kind of landlines, corded phones that were used were exactly what we used. Like they did a really, really good job with filling things in, because I believe Diablo Cody and I are within, and that was the writer of the film, the great Diablo Cody. She and I are about the same age, I think. We're in the ballpark of each other, so we probably had the same exposures, of running to the mall to buy CDs back when that was a thing, back when you had to buy physical media to listen to an effing song.
R.I.P.
Yes, yeah, exactly. R.I.P. And then once you've got, you know, your new Beastie Boys CD, you know, you go to the food court, you go to the food court for, you know, tacos or dogs or a slice of Sbarro pizza and fill up on that, and then, you know, get jacked up and go to the arcade for 3 hours.
Yep.
So there were so many things in this movie that, like, even the character's car, the sister has a two-door red Volkswagen Rabbit.
VW. What is it
Yeah,
called? A what?
I think they were called, like, a version of that car was called the Rabbit
The
in, at least
Rabbit.
in the
Oh.
United States. But I think it's the Rabbit is also the same as the GTI. The Rabbit was the non-turbo version, but there were others, and then there was yet another version of that car called the Cabriolet, which was a convertible version, which was like the ultimate, like, if you knew a girl that had one of those, she was a rich girl. You know, I knew very few women that had that car, but every once in a while you'd see one.
Was that not was that not the Thing? Or is the Thing like what was it? Is that a nickname for one of the VWs?
No, the thing that was the late '60s. The
Oh,
thing,
okay.
the Volkswagen Thing was literally a rebadged German Jeep from World War II. So literally, the Jeeps that the Nazis were using in World War II were rebadged by Volkswagen in the '60s and sold as dune buggies in places like California in the '60s, which is wild. But yeah,
Wow,
fast
okay.
fast forward to the '80s, and
Got
it
it.
was, you had the
Mhm.
Rabbit,
The
you had
Rabbit.
GTI, you had the Fox, different, you know, these different nameplates had come around by then. But
Mhm.
yeah, there were things that I remembered from, like, being a kid that absolutely hit. I think, like, there were even some stores in the mall or different places, like, just remembering how girls did their hair to the side, like, they with a pony. Just what was it? Seeing Trapper Keepers, which no one uses anymore, which actually they should bring back. Trapper Keepers were like this binder full of folders that you could keep all of your different subjects, like, you know, your English class, your math class, your history, like, everything would just fold in, and you'd either just carry that with some books,
Oh.
or you'd throw that in your bag with your books. They were super cool, and I kind of wish I had my Trapper Keepers because I think they should bring them back. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's all on a tablet at this point, but yeah, that type of stuff. I was like, wow, okay, yeah, they really did their homework in this movie. And even though, like, the Lisa Swallow's house, it's almost too '80s. Like, no, like,
The
it
Pink?
was. It was, yeah, because it's set in 1989. They talk about, like, we're gonna go see Look Who's Talking, which came out in '89. So it's
That
kind of
was the
the end of
indicator.
the '80s, early '90s. They still did pretty well with it. They were right at almost too much '80s. Like, it was almost like, okay, we're reaching maximum, and they stopped right there, which was
Mm.
beautiful. But enough of the style. Um, what what were things you liked, were surprised by about Lisa Frankenstein?
I thought that Liza Soberano's character, the stepsister, was
Yep.
just gonna be a conceited bitch, and she wasn't, really.
Right.
Yeah, that really surprised me. I'm glad that Lisa had that from the beginning, you know? She didn't really have that many friends, you know, she moves to a new town. At the very least, she had a stepsister that was nice to her and helped her
Right.
out and went out of her way to tell everyone that they're related, that they're now sisters. I
Right.
thought that was cool. For some, like, that just sounds almost too perfect if the stepsister was a bitch and just
Right.
was mean, you know what I mean? So that was cool. That made me, you know, have a little bit more hope for our girl Lisa.
Right.
Um Cole Sprouse is, I mean, his performance just all so good. I mean,
Yeah.
it was funny for sure, and I'm sure if I was a part of the filming process for that movie, I wouldn't be able to keep it together.
Oh yeah.
So he was really good for sure. Um, oh man, what else was really good? Just like I said, the deaths, like everybody had it coming, but we
Right.
didn't think that they were gonna happen as they happened, or like the
Right.
way that they happened.
Right.
Sp-
And
like,
I
but
do.
go
I
ahead.
love one of my favorite things that you mentioned. Sorry to interrupt, but
No
the
worries.
immediately again, Diablo Cody shows her skill as a screenwriter and plays against expectations, because the expectation is going to be that, okay, now that Lisa and her father, they're now part of a new family, that, okay, now it has to be this entire new family, and the entire new family has to be against Lisa. And obviously the stepmother is against Lisa and is really not a good person. But at least she's got her sister. And I really liked the choice that was made to make these sisters. That just because you're now part of a mixed family, or you know, you're remarried, whatever you want to call it, doesn't mean that these girls have to now arbitrarily
Be
be
enemies. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
and the I'm blanking on her name on their sisters. Is it Janet? No, Janet's the mother.
Talking about the sister's name in the film.
Yes,
Taffy.
Taff. Right, that's
Taff.
right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, Taff, played by Lisa Sobrino. She is sweet. She's helpful. She's like the popular girl. She's a cheerleader. She's athletic. She's really pretty. She's charming,
Hmm.
and she loves her sister, who is goth, awkward, weird, socially, inept. All of these things, and I really like the that interpretation. And there's also, and this is just a personal thing for me, as being a part of a mixed family, that's kind of my experience with Filipinos in general. And I think it's cool that she's a Filipino girl. She's from Santa Clarita, so she's from
Hmm.
the LA area. So she's
Made a huge name for herself in the Philippines for Filipino like rom-coms and like
okay.
love films and stuff like that. But it's cool to see her on the big screen out here for
She's
Hollywood.
great.
Yeah,
She's absolutely warm, and I love that. I love that choice of casting her. And maybe this is just a super personal point for me, is being part of a Filipino family. That's what I've always kind of felt. I mean, going back
for sure. Yeah, yeah,
30 years now.
absolutely.
So and just seeing that embrace of, oh, okay, we weren't born together, we aren't blood, but we're family anyway. And so
Hmm.
watching her embrace her sister like that, I'm like, oh, I can relate to that. I kind of dig that. And so
Yeah.
to actually see that embodied on screen, by a character that just happens to be Filipino, was
Hmm.
really, and I was happy that at least Lisa had that in her corner, even though
Yeah.
sometimes things get rough between her and Taff. Taff, it's nothing but good vibes, good intentions. It's nothing but love
Hmm.
from Taff.
Felt that the entire time.
Yes.
Yeah. What's your favorite, like, if there's any one thing that stands out, whether it's, the characters or just the funny references of the 80s, like
I mean,
what was the big thing for you?
I like the one. I mean, I like the dynamic between the sisters. I
Mhm.
like I like watching Lisa come into her own. She, at first she's sort of ashamed of her geekness, of her gothness. She's not quite 100%. It's who she is. It's what she loves, but she doesn't own it. And when the monster, it
The
comes
creature,
into,
I think.
yeah, the
Yeah.
creature, when Cole Sprouse comes into her life, it having someone to really talk to, who, even
Hmm.
though we can't speak back, one, listens to her, two, does care, three, rescues her, helps her, not completely rescue, but assists her at times.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You can see it just reminds me of what it's really like if you've ever been somebody who was a lonely kid, a lonely teenager, a weirder kid that doesn't really line up with a lot of people. Sometimes all you need is one friend. Sometimes all you need is that one person that says, hey, you're cool, let's go get something to drink. Hey,
Hmm.
let's go get a pizza puff. Let's go get tacos. And I remember seeing people that came out of their shell either in junior high or high school because somebody just gave them permission to be themselves. And that's what Cole Sprouse's character
Hmm.
is for Lisa. It's a validation of her. You know what? Trust your own style. Trust your own instincts. Be you. And you watch
Hmm.
arc of her character. That's probably my most favorite part of the movie. She starts to Elvira out, and I don't know if anybody knows who the hell Elvira is up there. If you don't, you need to look her up. She's absolutely amazing. Oh my God, Elvira, she is Halloween. She's the queen of Halloween, always will be. She got a movie in 1988, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Watch it; it's funny. It's so great. But you watch her embrace. She starts with the clothes and with the fashion, and she halfway through the movie.
Someone even says, like, there's actually a line in the movie. I can't remember if it's the dude that was like messing with her in the beginning of the party. Someone said, "You're literally speaking more in these 2 minutes than you have like the entire time that I've known you," just because she's getting more comfortable speaking because she's
right. Well, yeah,
she's blowing up. Yeah.
No, exactly. She's having her glow up, and that's like the first 10 to 15 minutes of the film. She's pretty quiet, and she's just sort of just being pushed around by life. She's sort of being pushed around by her stepmother, and as she comes into her own, you're right. She literally finds her voice, which is such a great metaphor for her glow up, for her coming into her own, and by the middle of the film, she's sort of this sophisticated badass that wears, black funeral dresses to school, and she's got her sunglasses on in class, and it's I love that. I love characters that are underdogs. I love characters that are kicked around and find their strength. They trust in themselves, and then it's like, check me out now, motherfuckers. Now what? Now what? I absolutely love that, and then you build around that this beautiful dark fairy tale set in the late '80s with all the trappings of it, and what it really is. Not to sound cheesy, but it is the best kind of empowerment film. Without it doesn't, again, because of the brilliance of Diablo Cody's screenwriting and Zelda Williams' incredible directing. I need to watch more Zelda Williams because I really liked how this was directed and the choices that were made. It really frames that growth of the characters. And that's the thing, is what's so fun is you see Lisa, you see her come into her own, and you literally see Frank, Cole Sprouse's character, grow with her. Like, she keeps making, again, if you haven't seen the movie, pause this right now, go watch it, because I'm about to spoil some shit. I love how they take the Dr. Frankenstein archetype, put it on Lisa, and how does she heal her man? How does she keep building her zombie? With a tanning bed. Whereas Dr. Frankenstein did it with his laboratory and his
electricity,
his lightning rods.
Yeah,
She uses
exactly
the most 80s things ever, a tanning bed. She uses that. Again, really brilliant writing and directing on the part of Diablo and Zelda. I just love the creativeness. I love just the fact that a completely original feature film that's not connected to any existing property, that is not an existing IP, and I'm not against any of those things. There's room for everything. But the fact that this movie got made, that this movie's doing as well as it has been doing, that people are falling in love with this movie, that it's word of mouth, and I just happened to see one poster, just one poster driving down the street, and enough that they went back, and this movie is equal parts 80s camp, 80s darkness, empowerment movie, romantic comedy, all wrapped up in that 80s aesthetic that was just so pure and popular at the time. And it succeeds on every level. Like, there's no weak links in this movie, not in the characters and the supporting characters, in how it rolls out. Like, in the beginning, and this is not a criticism of the film, but like that first, our introduction to Lisa, that 10 to 15 minutes, I'm like, man, she's just dragging along. And I'm not saying the movie, but it's that beautiful setup for what's to come. And if you didn't have that, you don't have this beautiful, flight that comes up. So no, I really love this movie. This is an immediate cult classic. But I love the fact that it's getting mainstream critical acclaim too.
I truly hope it gets the same hype that Jennifer's Body did, because I remember when Jennifer's Body came out, and I did watch it, and it was a crazy ass movie, and I remember all the hype around it. So I really hope that this one gets gets the same amount, if not more.
Yeah, well, I mean, Diablo Cody, she's got cachet now, and she doesn't do a ton of stuff. Everything she's done, she's knocked out of the park. I really need to check out Zelda Williams because I'm really, really impressed by her directing. I want to see more from her. But this is, if they decided to do more together, I wouldn't be mad.
Oh, more female filmmakers. Got it.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
these women are just.
Mm-hmm.
It was just fun, and this is again along the lines of
Very fun movie.
other stuff that we've watched. It's fun. You can't predict where it goes. It's built on everybody knows the Frankenstein story. That's actually again, let's just keep heaping layers of praise on this film. Another beautiful part of this is okay, it's built on a story that almost everyone knows. If you're an American kid, you're an American person, you've heard of Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Mummy, all those things. So it grabs onto something that is pretty universally known. Okay, we know the Frankenstein story. And yeah, and then it weaves this completely original tale into it that you almost forget that this is a Frankenstein story. You kind of forget. It's like no, you're just like okay, how's this going to work for her? What's next for these two? And you see as they continue to literally progress, you see Lisa progressing as her own person, and you see Cole Sprouse's dead zombie character literally getting better, getting extra parts, and all
handsomer,
that.
all of it. Yeah, more
right. And again, all without any words. Again, that dude needs to get his props for it. It's really impressive. It's super original. It doesn't
great performance by Cole.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you referenced Jennifer's Body. I remember the first time I watched that. I was late to the party on Jennifer's Body, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like that beginning. I'm like, "This is dark, really dark." And I don't think that Megan Fox gets nearly enough credit for how strong an actress she is. Like there's nothing wrong. You take the work that you get. But I knew Megan Fox from Transformers movies. I knew Megan Fox from these much bigger movies. And then later, I think I only saw Jennifer's Body 4 years ago, and I watched this movie. I was like, wow, there's so much to it. And the script, again, Diablo Cody's script was so rich and deep. And there's they don't quite explain everything in Jennifer's Body, and it's you've got this the tete-a-tete between Megan Fox and Amanda Siegfried's character, which it had layers of what it must be like to be a teenage girl and what it must be like in that social hierarchy and just maneuvering the world. Again, really, really brilliant in that. So again, I knew I was in good hands, and I'm sure that the fact that Diablo Cody has this cachet that she has now, that's bringing people in. It really, really worked. And I appreciated that the cast, with the exception of Carla Gugino, and the dad was familiar. I believe the dad is one of the dads from Stranger Things. I'm like, God, that dad but he looks like every.
He looks the part.
He's every 80s dad that you'd see in every 80s.
You know what I mean? Thick glasses. Yeah.
Oh my God. And I believe he's one of the kids' dads in Stranger Things. But besides Carla Gugino, I didn't really know anybody. I didn't know Cole Sprouse, Lisa Sobrino. I didn't know Catherine Newton. And that was another treat for me is, again, thank you, Hollywood, one, for making this movie, for letting this movie get out and doing something completely original that's not something we've seen before. But thank you for casting people we have never seen before. There's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of great talent out there that deserves to be seen, and we don't need this. Again, nothing against successful actors, but we don't need to see the same 10 people in every film. And I love going into this movie, discovering an original film, but discovering new actors, man.
Yep. Killer performances, makes you want to see more of them.
Yeah, and I obviously want to see more from Catherine Newton, who plays Lisa. I want to see more from Cole Sprouse, and I want to see more from Lisa Sobrino too. You were telling me about, you've been a fan of Lisa Sobrino for a while, and I again had never heard of her. I thought it was cool. Again, on our way to the theater, I'm like, oh wait, so her sister's Filipino? Like, How's that work? So again, also really brilliant original casting. Like, yeah, why can't her sister
Pairing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was the creativity all around in this film. It deserves to be watched. It deserves to be shared. It deserves the praise that it's earned,
Absolutely.
as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
I love this movie. Um, was there anything about it that, I guess we talked about what we like? Any particular surprises? I was kind of surprised by the depth of the violence. Not that I minded it. I mean, I figured there would probably be, because it was a horror comedy, but I was surprised at that the horror was true horror in some cases. That surprised me.
Just straight slasher vibes. Got a
Whew.
hat? Let's just use it.
Yeah, yeah. I like, okay, they're not pulling punches, and I guess it would have, if they had pulled those punches, it might have fallen into that trap of it feeling like 80s cheese. And because this,
I was getting that vibe just a little bit. Maybe the
yeah,
scene when they were playing dress up, like I was like, okay, this is like every every 80s scene where yeah, where you'd hear Madonna's Material Girl playing in the background. Like, you know what I mean? But then it wasn't until the first kill that got me.
I appreciated that they threw those, like, they had just enough tropes. You had, you had sort of like the stereotypical students. You had sort of the stereotypical dad. You had a stereotypical 80s teacher staff. You had those things. Then you had the 80s montage, like of him trying on the different outfits. And I mean, geez, I mean, I'm like, okay, you guys have done your homework. But at no point did it feel cheesy. I'm like, oh, this is just kind of cool. This is just kind of fun. And then they brought in the horror. Like, oh, okay, I guess. Oh shit, yeah, you are really okay. Now there's real stakes here, and we're gonna see how this goes. And I appreciated that because I couldn't predict where the hell it was going.
Same. I mean, obviously, once she made the first kill, we all knew that she's stuck in it now, right? And of course, her fate at the very end, I wasn't expecting that. Like, what an interesting choice to make
beautiful,
her.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was, and talk about tying into the old classic Frankenstein films. Again, not to spoil it for people, but there's a beautiful little nod there at the end to it, which again was beautiful. And I guess when I think about it, they were kind of telegraphing that, because in Lisa's room, again, because she's a goth girl, she's got her classic Lon Chaney and Frankenstein and Dracula posters in there, and they, and then they drop these little things in there, from the moment that we meet Cole Sprouse's character, and we keep dropping things in. It's like, oh, yep, they keep beautifully referencing these old horror films from literally the 30s, which you think, how do you make that fit the 80s? And they do it, and it's beautiful.
And not only how do they fit that in 80s, but how do we capture it in a lens of the 21st century, because it's being made in 2024.
Right. So. Yeah, and they didn't fall for, okay, it's hokey camp. It also, you know what it did? It does what Stranger Things does so well with 80s nostalgia and 80s, that whole 80s revival, which people keep telling me that the 80s nostalgia, oh, it's over, it's run its course. It really hasn't. And proof of it is our films like this. But when Lisa Frankenstein
80s style is literally coming back in media and entertainment.
It's been rocking hard for about 15 years now and shows no sign of stopping. And I love that, because it was a very optimistic, we can do anything kind of decade. And I don't think that's something we should pull through all decades. But what Lisa Frankenstein does, and it does the same thing that Stranger Things does, is it keeps a contemporary sophistication on the 80s aesthetic. It puts it kind of Jordan Peele's it, in that it gives us a perspective of, okay, yeah, kids and teenagers can be just as badass as adults, and that's what you got a lot of in the 80s and a lot of 80s
Mhm.
film. They kept that, but they also kept that kids aren't as dumb as we sometimes assume that they are. Like these kids are sophisticated and they're smart and they're a
Catch
part of the
on.
world and they're engaged in the world and there were no I mean, I guess there were moments for Taff because she's a very sweet girl. You know, there were some shocks for her that come up, but I do like that sort of badass sophistication, self-possessed, again, badassery that comes out of the lead characters in this movie.
Mhm.
It's so well done.
Yeah. Yeah. Another one. Thank you for inviting me. Like I said, I've seen maybe one promotional poster, one clip.
Right.
You guys have never steered me wrong with films, and I am excited to keep that streak going with you.
Oh no, we're gonna keep going. And no, and this was my recommendation for if you were if anybody out there was going to double feature this. I think that a good double feature with Lisa Frankenstein would probably, because I just keep thinking there's two. You could watch Lisa Frankenstein and then turn right around and watch Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, 1988, with the great Cassandra Peterson, who is Elvira, who is the
Mhm.
Queen of Halloween, who is the original goth girl from the Valley. God, I love this woman so much. And she wrote that with her friend. She wrote Elvira with her friend. I mean, she owns the character lock, stock, and barrel. She's built a career on it. But Lisa Frankenstein, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, that'd be an excellent double bill. Or or you could go an even maybe darker route because Elvira is much more comedy. You could do Lisa Frankenstein and Heathers. Heathers is the Winona Ryder. Um, Let me pull it up here. Heathers, 1980, also 1988, came out the
Wasn't that a
same year.
Broadway show or
What's
something?
that?
Was that a Broadway show or something at first? Or like a
No,
stage thing?
it was originally a film, and I don't know why it's giving me the musical. How annoying that Google gives me the
There you
musical.
go.
But the
Okay.
1988 film Heather's um, film, Jesus, was an immediate cult hit in the late 80s.
I've
This
heard
would
of it.
also be a great double bill with Lisa Frankenstein. It stars people that are still around. We've got Christian Slater. We've got, of course, Winona Ryder. Shannon Doherty was in it. This was a really fun movie that really gave a sophistication to, I guess it would be Gen X. This would be like the tail end of Gen X because they're in high school in the late 80s of sort of calling adults out on their nonsense of the darker side of human nature. There's, it's not so funny now, but it was at the time. If you were someone who was bullied or disliked, well, what would happen if you could, I don't know, do away with those
Lash
people?
out. Lash
Yeah,
out.
if you could really, you could,
Yeah.
and it explores those things, and it does so in a comedic way. Again, dark comedy, not so much horror, but a dark comedy. So, yes, Heather's, Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, both from 1988, would be a great double bill with Lisa Frankenstein. If you like Lisa Frankenstein, it would be worth going back to both of those movies because they absolutely share a soul. They share a bond aesthetically. Uh, Again, very sophisticated movies, fun movies that are worth a watch. So, yeah, guys, thanks for coming.
I would pair it
Again.
maybe with Lucas with Corey Haim.
Ooh, you know what? Talk about another one that hits you in the heart.
Yeah.
That's a good one because you are left at the end with kind of a heart song at the end of Lisa Frankenstein. And
Hmm.
Lucas is one of those films that, ooh, just thinking about it makes me, that was a powerful film. Yeah, what the hell? Throw Lucas in there. From what film is that? Lucas film. Now I'm getting Lucas film. Okay, 1986 film that starred Corey Haim and Charlie Sheen.
Hmm.
So a
R.I.P.
romantic comedy drama from David Seltzer, who wrote The Omen. Wild. Talk about total opposite end of things. But yeah, let's what the hell throw that in there. Lucas from 1986. Um, it really fits in. Oh, I didn't realize this. Lucas Bly is an intelligent 14-year-old high school student in suburban Chicago. I had no idea the movie. I didn't even realize the movie was set in suburban Chicago, but neither here nor there. But yeah, thanks for being open to coming to this one because
Thank you for inviting me. As always, like I said, you guys have never steered me wrong.
no.
I always trust your opinions and your knowledge on film. You guys, this is your first time seeing anytime we watch a movie, me and Kyle, we will hardly ever make it through the entire movie because we will always pause it and analyze and chat, and then next thing we know, it's like midnight and we haven't even finished the movie just because we keep chopping it up. So
yeah,
I always enjoy our film talks. So
no,
thank you.
I love the fact that you're so open to it. There's so much good film out there. I get angry when people, they rag on, certain genre, or they don't like, where, again, Hollywood and film, like anything, goes through trends. And, there's so much great film out right now, obviously, like Lisa Frankenstein, Godzilla -1, Saltburn, amazing film that's being made right now. Even though it doesn't get like the fanfare. So this idea that there isn't good film being made now is wrong. There's great film today. There was great film yesterday. Yeah, all the things we mentioned here. If we would never steer anybody wrong, but I appreciate the gift of your trust, Sobrino. Do.
Of course. Thank you for inviting. As always, always a good time with you guys.
So, and yeah, the rest of you, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. If there's movies you want us to review, stuff we haven't talked about, stuff that you think would pair well with the stuff that we review, let us know in the comments below. But please like, subscribe, share, and we'll catch you all next time.
See you guys. Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.